mid-1980s, the Hiranandani brothers ran a textile mill, and they decided to take drastic measures with their businesses.
We started with textiles and we did a little bit in real estate, and soon we were in difficulty with both. We were losing money and we were in debts, and one fine day we decided to sell off the textile unit and we were bang into the real estate business.
With 250 acres of desolate land in hand, the Hiranandani brothers were desperately in need of a plan to turn it into the satellite township they hoped for.
Most of the cities have evolved over a period of time. So the challenge that we face as urban planners is that how do you make that idea of a livable, vibrant city happen in that small timeline that we have.
The task of masterminding this transformation went to architect Hafiz Contractor.
My architecture is always for a reason. I just don't do anything for the sake of it.
Mumbai's architectural history has its pedigree in 19th century British colonial architecture. It is a mix of Victorian, Neo-Gothic and Art Deco styles that gives the city a unique identity. The Hiranandanis tapped Hafiz's creative genius to create the blueprint for an integrated township that would not only counter the infrastructure crunch in the city, but also give it a unique architectural icon.
The old style of Mumbai, which, all this area is the Gothic style. We did Gothic style. Then we said, no, it looks a little bit quite old-fashioned. Then we did some Art Deco. Then we did, postmodernist. Then finally, one fine day, I was sitting with Surendra and we said, hey, why don't we do a classical style?
Expanding on Mumbai's architectural heritage, the Hiranandanis went in for neoclassical style architecture. The neoclassical style of architecture started in the mid-1800s and has influenced many buildings in Mumbai. The characteristic columns and geometric patterns are a modern adaptation of classical Greek architecture. But the Hiranandanis decided to adapt it for a vertical housing project.
We realized that we need to create some style of architecture which belongs to this place, which makes it, gratifying to the residents and yet has some harmony to it. This style was, in those days, also quite popular in the West. It was considered neoclassical, but nobody had really done it for high-rise.
The same columns that can be seen in the ancient Greek temples can be seen in Hiranandani gardens, all following strict architectural rules. The height of every column in the township is exactly 8 times its diameter, and each column is perfectly cylindrical 2/3 of the way and then tapers up to the top. This design not only provides strength and stability to the structure, but also gives Hiranandani Gardens its unique style. The colonnades on the top of the residential complex are an ingenious way to mask the eyesore of utilities that usually adorn high-rise buildings.
I think some people say it's a cake on the top of the buildings. Other people look at it as topis or hats, but actually they are water tanks and lift machine rooms disguised under the topi. And I think, it's like going to a derby and where you wear hats on the top, on the face of beautiful ladies. We have the topis on the top of beautiful buildings.
The use of domes from the Victorian era, motifs from the Gothic period, and elements of Indian design have given Hiranandani Gardens the fame that it enjoys today.
fact, there was a survey. There was a survey taken by Times of India, and they asked what kind of an architectural building you like. And 75% of the people at that time said that we like architecture of Hiranandani Gardens.
But the uniqueness of Hiranandani Gardens is not only cosmetic.
Each and every building in Hiranandani Gardens, we have a double wall.
The double wall design encapsulates an air pocket in between two walls, giving insulation from the elements.
In rainy season, the inside wall never gets wet. In summer, the inside wall never gets hot. And in winter, whatever winter we have, it never gets cold.
This wall design feature had one more advantage: more floor space.
Now there was also an improvement in area, because previously everybody used to do 9-inch thick external walls. Now from that 9-inch is in your FSI. So what I did 6 inches, so you get more carpet area, and created another 6 inches outside, which was not in FSI. So you get more area.
70s and 80s, everything was in shambles. Nobody really knew how to construct. There was no consultant you could hire. So we had to make our own, guidelines for construction. We had to go refer to Australian standards, Singapore standards, European standards, American standards as a reference, and created our own reference.
Some of the innovations in concrete and wall design used in Hiranandani Gardens are now standard practice in the construction industry. But the construction process was not without its obstacles.
There were so many challenges that you can't imagine. There was no water, there was no electricity, there were no proper roads, so it was almost an impossible task. So everything was really a challenge. There was also a challenge for making people believe that we would construct the buildings, because it was so far away.
In the 80s, early 90s, there was no funding from the organized sector. You had to take own private sector loans at absolutely like usury. It was usurious interest rates, and you had to survive with that. The markets were very weak, and we selected a location which was, for all practical purposes, in the boondocks.
Despite the challenges, by the early 1990s, the buildings in Hiranandani Gardens were nearing completion. But the real challenge was to convince people to move into Powai.
It was difficult getting even the first residential people to buy apartments over here, because all they thought was, Powai? Picnic space. Why should it be a residential space?
The Hiranandani brothers would need a radical idea to convince people to move into a remote suburb of the city.